Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Movie Mates video. I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, great to see you. So today we're back with another mini review, and we're reviewing, as you see by the title, Palm Springs, which is a new. Is it supposed that you could call it a romantic comedy? Couldn't you?
Yeah, we'll not delve into genre in the intro. If you haven't seen the film, we will be talking spoilers. So I'd say from now on, this is your warning. If you haven't seen the film, go watch it, come back because we'll be getting in depth. I'm
Absolutely,
surprised that we've actually managed to make some mini reviews because this is probably the most consistent amount of mini reviews that we've made in sort of like quick succession.
absolutely.
Like more than even if we were going to the cinema, and there actually haven't been many new releases. I've had to sort of like delve into the new releases ideas. I mean, the next one that I want us to review is the Kissing Booth in preparation for the Kissing Booth 2.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're familiar with the Kissing Booth. It's not
the
good.
Netflix one. Yeah.
So yeah, so I look forward to making you watch that because it's tough.
No, but yeah, I suppose like in another month's time, like there'll be a few big blockbusters. I think is Black Widow and Wonder Woman delayed till August, right? Or is it a bit later than that?
Uh, Black Wonder Woman is October and Black Widow is November.
Okay,
The
so
only
in the
ones in
next few
August,
months,
I
I suppose.
believe. I believe August. There's Mulan and there's Tenet.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, in the next month or next few months, we'll be getting more and more mini reviews and podcasts out. So yeah, as Callum said, full spoilers from this point on. And if you haven't checked out our 50th episode podcast episode suggestions video, there is that is the video titled "We Need Your Help." So be sure if you haven't seen that to leave your comments on what you want us to talk about in our 50th podcast, or just leave it in the comment section of this video, whatever works. And yeah, please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Palm Springs if you've seen it down below. And yeah, shall we crack on, buddy, with spoilers then? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the next time that we have like a we need your help vibe of video, we just need to have like, the Uncle Sam poster, but just with your face on it.
You know what? I was so close to doing the Uncle Sam like as the thumbnail, but I was like, we'll save it for the 100th. We'll save it for the 100th.
Yeah, because I saw the original thumbnail, which was the blue and yellow one, and then I like refreshed it, and then I was like, it's pointing at me. I feel like rest.
But yeah, did you wanna hop right in, buddy? Yeah, with your, I'm just happy to go by your remarks, and I'll chip in when I can if that works for you, mate.
Yeah, sure. So I'd heard that this film was a time travel comedy, which was even more details than I really wanted to know because I had heard, if you want to go into this fresh, go into it fresh. You shouldn't know any details before you watch this film. And it was a big surprise to find out that it was a time loop film. Like that was the biggest surprise of the film for me.
Yeah, I loved
How
it.
did you sort of react to that?
Yeah, we've covered time loops on the podcast before, and I always have a great time with those movies. And this movie is no exception, really. This movie's fantastic, and I was really pleasantly surprised. I had and I even like before the film, like before I put it on yesterday, like I had a wee look at the cast, and I was like, this is a pretty star-studded cast as well. With like Kristen Milioti and J.K. Simmons and Camila Mendes, and obviously Andy Samberg. So it's a pretty big cast, like.
Yeah, I was glad I did not know that J.K. Simmons was in it because
Oh,
that was a fantastic surprise.
absolutely.
But I've never had like a film surprise me with the genre. It just seems like such a fundamental thing that you would know going in.
Oh
But I
yeah,
suppose because I specifically like dodged trailers, I had absolutely no inkling.
yeah, man. Like, and I would say this is certainly one of the most surprising films of the year, and definitely one of Andy Samberg's best performances. I think it's not probably his most humorous one, but I think this is his most his best acting role, I would say, and he's an absolute delight here as always. I know you're a big fan of him.
Yeah, and I would say the biggest surprise of the film is how it ends because I feel like with all the other time loop films that we've covered, the answer to like how do they get out of the time loop is they just do. There is no scientific or logical explanation. It's just karmically or cosmically that the world and fate has decided that they no longer need to be in there to learn a lesson.
Yeah,
But here they actually have to actively take themselves out of it because they're basically in purgatory until they actively do something about it. There's no cosmic decision or selfish act or selfless act that they are meant to cause or do.
Absolutely, buddy. And one thing I really love about this film is how the characters in the film do try methods to try and get out of it. We see, you know, Niles, Andy Samberg's character, like he tries to commit suicide in a similar sense to how Phil did in Groundhog Day, and obviously, oh, what's her name? I think it's Sarah. Like she tries to stay awake, which I thought was actually quite refreshing to see a character try and stay awake to try and survive the time loop. But no, it's a really refreshing film. I think it actually stands on its own 2 feet, sort of in the genre. Like it doesn't feel like any time loop movie that I've seen really, apart from maybe Groundhog Day. But even that, like this is
Yeah.
very different from that.
Yeah, especially because it's the first that we see like like an established character already having lived multiple days. The director sort of said that this is almost like part two of a two-part film where there's part one where Niles gets stuck in the loop and then part two where Sarah joins him.
Yeah.
So this movie fuck my life. This movie sort of starts in the middle of the story, and I find that really refreshing because he can sort of act
Absolutely.
as this time loop guru for Sarah. And I would say the funniest moment that comes from that is where he already knows the best method of dying in a car accident, and he sort of like rests his
Yeah.
head against the what the
Yeah.
fuck do you call that?
I don't know, like the
Dashboard.
dashboard. Yeah. Yeah. No, that was a real.
We don't drive.
Yeah, we don't
We're
drive.
18. We don't we I mean you haven't got you've got your provisional license. I don't even have that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We don't drive. We like the public transport, don't we?
Yeah, I just rely on my dad. I need to sort myself out, honestly.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
Yeah. But yeah, like I think this is the movie opens really uncomfortably, doesn't it? Like it's a quite unusually, it is quite comedic, but it's quite uncomfortable.
yeah, and I could tell immediately that we're not meant to like the character of Misty. But until we actually find out that she's been cheating on Niles, and obviously, we don't know at that point that he's been in this time loop for, possibly years or even decades. We have literally no concept of how long he's been in this situation.
Yeah.
So obviously he has that, contextual knowledge that she's been cheating on him, and that's potentially why having sex with her does not reach completion. So we don't know that as a viewer yet. So it's kind of it is a painfully awkward scene to watch,
Yeah.
and I could tell the film wanted us to hate Misty, but obviously we don't know that she's a cheater. So it kind of seemed that her only flaw was being incredibly irritating. So for once, I didn't like go out of my way to hate a character where I normally would,
Yeah.
and then it actually subverted my expectations and made her a worse character than I expected.
Absolutely, man. I agree completely. That's a fantastic point, Callum. And I actually really like how the film subverts that relationship and sort of and pursues the relationship between Niles and Sarah. And I think that's probably the strongest dynamic in the film. And obviously, like Kristen Milioti, like this is the first thing I've seen her in since Black Mirror. In that episode, I think it's like USS Callister, is it?
Yeah, season 4, episode 1.
She's such a fantastic actress. Yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't been in more things. Like she's incredible.
Well, her most famous role was probably playing the mother on How I Met Your Mother. That was
Okay.
my introduction to her. So yeah, I've always considered her a fantastic actress. And obviously Andy Samberg is just a genius.
And absolutely, absolutely.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Cuckoo, The Lonely Island, and I didn't actually know until recently that The Lonely Island, like the entire cast of The Lonely Island, was actually involved in the production of this film.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
you know, Akiva Schaffer and Jorma Taccone were actually both producers on the film.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Like you can definitely see there's subtle humor, sort of sprinkled throughout, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. And we see very early on in the film that Niles is pessimistic in the ways of love. And I just wondered, do you think that he was this way before the time loop started, or do you think it's just the bitterness that has come as a result?
I think it's the bitterness that have come as a result of the time limit, but then we don't really know how long he's been in there for. Like it seems like it's long enough for him to forget what his job used to be before he was in the time loop, and he's certainly forgot other aspects of his life. So yeah, I think it was probably a an effect of the time loop. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, to me, he sort of came off as like an exaggerated version of Summer from 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah.
And obviously, at this point, we don't know that he's been in the time loop. So I was just judging him as a person. well, at that point, I didn't even know it was a time loop film, let alone that he had been living in the time loop.
Yeah,
So at that point, I was just like, oh, he's a pessimistic dickhead. Because I mean, you can have all your opinions about love, that's fine, but then don't subject someone to being in a relationship with you. Like
good
if you
point.
say that love isn't real, and you're like, but go on a date with me and fall in love with me, but I will never fall in love with you because love is a sham that I don't believe in.
Yeah.
You know, so I was just surprised that he ever went along with, continuing his relationship with Misty, whenever he repeats the time loop. I don't know why, it took to like him meeting Sarah that he leaves Misty and, decides to cut off the relationship.
Yeah, I think one of the more humorous aspects of the film comes with Misty cheating on Niles and like how him and Sarah sort of like play pranks on her and stuff. And I just love how brutally honest he is. Like, he gets more and more brutally honest throughout the film. I think Niles, and I think he was fantastic. And you know what? One thing I really didn't see coming, and I suppose we can get into this more later, is that Sarah is sleeping with Tala's would be husband, which I thought was really like a great twist.
Yeah, and I would say that it comes across exactly how they wanted to. It's an entirely effective reveal because it's this like huge bombshell moment that sort of recontextualizes every decision she's made in the film, and obviously explains like the words that she said to Tala that made her cry at the altar, in one of the versions of events. And yeah, it was a powerful moment that sort of shifted your perspective entirely on that character. And I don't know that it ever like really repairs your view of Sarah. I mean, obviously, a person isn't defined by their worst decision, but also we don't know enough about her life to know that that was her worst decision. This may be consistent behavior, and it seemed that by the end she maybe learned a lesson. But one person that didn't learn a lesson was Abe, which is Tala's would-be husband, as you said, and we'll sort of talk about that near the end because that's sort of
Sure.
a final few scenes discussion. But I would say my favorite part of the film was you mentioned Niles' brutal honesty, and Sarah asks him, "Who have you had sex with?" And he starts listing people up, and
Yeah.
he says Darla, and then he says his friend from the pool, and then he says your dad, and then
Yeah.
there's this moment, and I don't know if you remember the episode of Rick and Morty called
Sleepy
Total
Gary.
Recall. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it, there's a scene between Jerry and a make believe like sort of imagination character called Sleepy Gary, and there's this exact moment where they touch hands and realize that they're about to have sex, and they go, "What are we
What
doing?"
are we
And
doing?
that's exactly what Peter Gallagher says in that scene. And obviously, it turns out that it's a joke, but I love that scene more than anything in this
Yeah,
film.
absolutely. Do you think it was an intentional reference to that?
I, I don't think so, but if it is, mad respect to them because
Absolutely.
that's by far the funniest part of the film to me.
Absolutely, buddy. And like I have the same point. I think like one of my other favorite points of the film is when Niles and Roy are like getting high, just in the cave. This is before Roy is obviously in the time loop as well. And when Roy comes out of nowhere in our first encounter with him and like shoots Niles with an arrow, like I thought this was going to be. The film didn't go with Roy where I was expecting it to. Like the film doesn't go where I expected it to with Roy. He actually turns out he's just he seems like an okay guy by the end of it. I actually grew to really like his character, and yeah, he was probably consumed by vengeance and stuff, but he actually turned out to be a very very nice guy, I thought.
Yeah, the question is, can J.K. Simmons play an asshole? Well, I suppose in Whiplash, that's probably the closest that he comes.
Yeah,
Because I mean, J. Jonah Jameson's secretly a nice guy. In Spider-Man, he doesn't tell the Green Goblin Peter Parker's true identity.
yeah,
He
yeah,
says the photographer just sends them in the mail anonymously.
yeah.
He's a good guy.
He's a good
So
guy.
I'd say Fletcher in Whiplash is probably the biggest dickhead he's played.
Yeah, I'd
But
agree.
I mean, J.K. Simmons is just a wonderful man,
So
and
lovable.
his acceptance of like the joy that is in his life, his wife and his kids, it was a beautiful moment.
It was beautiful, and I think that's sort of mirrored in the fact that initially Niles and Sarah become happy with and comfortable with the time loop. And I thought that was really interesting. We never really see a character become comfortable in a time loop before in these films. I suppose Phil in Groundhog Day sort of gets used to it by the end, but even still, he still pursues that relationship with what's her name, Rita.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just gonna Andy McDowell, but yeah, it's Rita.
Yeah, but no, this film is in many ways. If I could describe it in one word, it would definitely be refreshing. It's one of those films that I think has really great rewatchability to it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you can only probably reference like between like 6 and 10 time loop films, inserting another one into that genre, like there's obviously going to be some originality there because I mean, it's one of the small few of the genre that exists. It's an incredibly niche genre, so if you can do something new in it, it seems like you've reinvented film.
Absolutely,
So
bro.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I think it's an incredible endeavor from this film. And did you have much before we sort of get on to sort of the roughly the ending of the film?
Nothing for me, but I just I've got a few quotes from the movie that I quite liked. We like to
Fantastic.
recall famous quotes in the film, and what the way we see when Niles and Sarah become comfortable in the time loop, they sort of enact different sketches throughout the film. They go and hang out with Darla at the bar and throw darts and stuff. And one thing I quite liked is when they pretend to be supervillains and at the wedding, and then Andy Samberg just comes out of nowhere. He's like, "There's a bomb in the cake, but don't worry, I'm a bomb guy." And then just I thought it was brilliant. And also when Sarah has sort of a mental breakdown with the police officer who is Roy, and one line I quite liked was she goes, "You gonna tase me, fuckface?" And I thought that was absolutely brilliantly delivered by Kristen Milioti.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
And speaking of her, having her breakdown, she leaves and she's potentially gone for years. We have no idea. It's very hard to gauge the timeline of the film,
It is.
especially because she goes away and becomes a genius in astrophysics. Uh, you know that would obviously take years of study to become a genius
How
in
long
that.
do
But
you
I
think
suppose
we're
if
in
she
there
was,
for?
it's so hard to gauge because Niles, we have absolutely no idea. He could have easily been in there for decades, but I feel like that. I feel like after decades he would have done more than just like
Lounge
chill,
about.
chill out.
Yeah.
I feel like he would have tried to fill his life with meaning. I know he recognized that life is meaningless, but I feel like even bettering himself by learning a new skill or something. I just
Absolutely.
feel like I feel like that's how I would cope in that situation. By at least filling my days with something new every day rather than just chilling out at the pool. I mean, if you recognize that there was no point in life, like what approach would you take? Would you just chill out and drink beer and wait for the day to end, or would you try and fill it with meaning?
I think I try. I think you definitely have days where you just want to relax and stuff, but I think for the most part, you'd probably want to give meaning or something. Do you know what I mean? It would get very boring just lying about all day, like Niles does. So, but I think with Sarah learning quantum physics and stuff, she must have been in there for at least what a few well, she's at least separated from Niles for a good few years, I would say, right?
Yeah, I mean it's so hard. It's so hard to gauge because I mean Niles sort of is like, oh, I miss Sarah, and then we sort of see like a couple of days events, maybe 3 or 4, and then they're reunited. But then she hasn't intimate knowledge of astrophysics. I suppose if she like sort of honed in like on the niche of multiverse and time travel, maybe she could have learned that in sort of a more isolated period of time. But she seemed to have a genius level intellect on that
Yeah.
specific niche of study. So it must have been years, but also she must have already been a genius to have that capacity to learn.
Yeah. This might be a hot take, I don't know, but would you agree that the Sarah character becomes less and less likable as the film goes on, or not? Because I sort of felt myself sort of waning my liking for the character when one it's revealed that she was sleeping with her sister's fiance, but also that she just sort of ditches Miles for what probably is years. And I get that she's trying to learn about quantum physics stuff, but it's sort of, I don't know, it just seemed a bit out of place for a character. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the adultery sort of comes in as like a huge bombshell, and that sort of changes how you view the character. But I feel like the movie wants you to like I feel like the movie tries to redeem her, and I think it wants you to see her in this new positive light, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was no point where I was like, oh, I more obviously, I mean, she is betraying the trust of her sister, but Abe was going to marry her,
yeah,
so he's betrayed the relationship, but she's betrayed a family member. So it's debatable as to who's committed the bigger moral issue. Abe or Sarah, but
exactly.
regardless, yeah, I couldn't really recover from that revelation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, but it's a difficult one. But that being said, it's not that I disliked her character by the end or something. It's just that I liked her less, I suppose. Like she's still very
Yeah, and
charismatic and stuff.
yeah, I feel like when she gave like the maid of honor toast at the end, that was meant to redeem her. But then she also turns to Abe and says like, "Don't fuck it up," and it's like, and then she's like, "I'm serious," and I'm like, "He's already fucked it up. You should not let this wedding take place." Like I know, like she wants to create like the optimum sequence of events, because then this is the sequence of events that she's gonna have to live with in the future. So she should at least be proud of the fact that she doesn't let her sister marry an adulterer. If
Absolutely.
if
Good
she's
point.
letting her sister, enter into a marriage where her husband has cheated on her, before they even got married,
Yeah.
uh, you know, I
Yeah.
I I feel like that's one of Sarah's biggest moral crimes, honestly.
Absolutely. Like we haven't even discussed the character of Tala, played by Camila Mendes, and like for she's not really in the film for a lot, but like Camila Mendes is I think she's such a great young. She's not really like a young actor. Oh, I suppose she is like in her early 20s, so she is a young actress, I suppose. No, she's very good in this film as well. And one of my favorite characters was actually Tala and Sarah's dad, which I thought he was absolutely hilarious throughout the film.
Yeah, definitely. And the film obviously centers around their wedding, and the final sequence of hypothetical events where Sarah gives her speech is where Tal and Abe do for some reason successfully marry. And I think Sarah has just completely misjudged it. She thinks that because she's been in the time loop for years and she's learned a lesson, that so has Abe. But he has no knowledge that each day is resetting, so he hasn't learned a single thing. He hasn't learned how to be a better husband, since the very first, sequence of events that she lived, without the time loop.
Great point.
So I think she's just very badly misjudged it.
It's a great point, but I actually agree with you completely.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be making some very weird niche pedantic points about the ending.
Go for it.
Uh, you know, so they explain this very complicated means of trying to return to their version of the future, I guess, by finally breaking the cycle and moving on to the next day. And I feel like I almost would have been okay not knowing if it worked out, just because of how effective Niall's speech about not caring about it being successful was. It didn't make me less happy that we do find out, but I just feel like for someone who usually hates ambiguity, I feel like Niall's speech was so moving that I wouldn't have minded, it just ending with them blowing themselves up.
Absolutely, and it's sort of it's yeah, I agree with you, man. I sort of feel like I wouldn't have minded if they just stayed in the time loop. Like I think a lot of time loop movies get the idea that they have to resolve it. Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow, like and obviously Happy Death Day and stuff. They find themselves out of the time loop, or in Happy Death Day's instance, like they think they do. But you know, I think in this film it would have been refreshing, or more refreshing, just to see them be happy and sort of take the Roy approach and just be comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because my final point revolves around Roy, and it's quite a lengthy
Go
statement.
for
I'll
it.
I'll just power through this, and then we can chat about it. So the fact that Roy was left in the time loop, and they exited it, seems to prove that instead of resetting the day, they're simply creating a new timeline each time, with an alternate version of themselves, meaning the universe continues when they die or go to sleep. So, I mean, then I have a point about Roy. But if you just want to chat about that, it does seem that, when they die or go to sleep, the universe continues after they're gone. So,
Yeah,
every version of events becomes an alternate timeline. And
I
that's
agree
sort
with
of
you.
incredibly fucked up when you consider how they did some things. I mean, I'm sure some of the things that they did in the years that we don't even see, resulted in the death of other people aside from them.
Yeah, like I agree with you, man. Like, do you think the Roy character, like, I was sort of confused by the sort of the end credit scene, if you can call it that, or post credit scene. You know, it sort of seems like Roy wants to get out, or I suppose, or maybe I don't know, maybe he's happy there because it seems like he's still in the time loop.
Yeah, I feel like he had just accepted that he wasn't getting out, so that's where he had sort of found his bliss. But obviously, the preferred, he would prefer to move forward. So yeah, I sort of it confused me how they played things in that mid credit scene, because I think it can be taken one of two ways. Either he's stuck in the loop, he's still stuck in the loop, and when he smiled, it's just that he now realizes he has a hypothetical way out, or because the version in this timeline that he's living in was Niles from the very first day of the first loop. Uh, you know that I guess was oh,
It's a weird
this is
one.
so difficult
Yeah,
to put into words. But he interacts with the Niles that he's never met before, so it's not the same version of Niles that lived that last day with Sarah in that in that now like canon version of events. So that means that he's gone back to the very first original day before the time loop had started.
yeah.
So this is so
It's
fucking
no,
confusing.
I get you, man. I get you.
But then that might seem it may be that that Sarah and Niles didn't exit the time loop, but they did successfully destroy it when they blew up the cave, and that now Roy is just living that last day, that first day, one last time, and when he wakes up the next day, he will be able to continue life, and it will be the next day.
That's what I sort of got
Like,
from it.
which did you take it as?
Yeah, I sort of took it as like, yeah, Roy understands that that's probably going to be. I would say that's definitely his last day. Then in a sort of similar sense of how Edge of Tomorrow did it. You know, they exit the time loop, but then are brought back sort of like 24 hours earlier. So I sort of think this film takes a similar approach where, yeah, all of them have exited the time loop, but then they're still brought back, or in Roy's case, like he's brought back to the start of the very first day. So like a similar Edge of Tomorrow deal. But one thing I was sort of confused about by this film, and maybe you can shed some light in this, is when sort of Niles and Sarah are like in the desert, and then they see some sort of like floating dinosaurs in the sky. I was really confused by that because it sort of feels like, oh, this is going somewhere. But then it just never really cropped up again.
Yeah, one, I had no clue what they were talking about because I was watching this on my phone, so I didn't see the dinosaurs. I didn't actually find out about that until uh, until I Wikipedia'd it. But they also do say quickly after that these are really good shrooms.
Ah,
So it was either a drug hallucination or it was a representation that things were changing. Was it like how did I not see that? Was
it
it
was
like
hard to
an
see, to be
animated
fair.
dinosaur or were they made of like
It,
stones or were they
in the
clouds?
clouds, in the clouds, yeah.
Okay, in the clouds. Yeah, it may just be either a drug hallucination or that kind of just sounds like like something normal you would see in a cloud. If you sort of you
Yeah,
know
suppose so, yeah.
if you sort of mistakenly draw that conclusion. So it may have been a representation that things were changing, which sowed it like the death of the goat. I'm just interested as to what benevolent power was behind the time loop because this film does go hard into the science of it. It's not that this would if they're able to exit it using the science of astrophysics, surely that means that it's not like you know like a karmic decision that they have to live in this time loop.
I think there's
So I'm
definitely,
I'm I'm just wondering,
yeah, I think there's
you
definitely room
know,
for a sequel here.
I don't want to see them taint it with a sequel.
Okay,
Honestly,
fair. Fair.
I think they should leave it as it is. I feel like time loops don't really open themselves to sequels, which is why Happy Death Day to You was a huge letdown, because it just didn't feel right.
Yeah. You know, one thing about this film, you know, it's so great. I love to think about where certain films go after this camera stop rolling. Like, where do you think the film goes? Do you think Miles and Sarah end up happy together, or what do you think?
I think that they've lived too long together to have a lifelong relationship. I mean, obviously we've talked about how traumatic events can bring people close together, and that sort of bonds them because they have that one thing in common that no one else has. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe they could get Roy in the relationship, maybe spice it up.
Spice it
But
up, yeah.
I don't know if that relationship is going to be lasting forever. Honestly,
To be
what
fair.
do you think?
I like to think that they end up sticking through. You know, they've been through so much together, so I'm sure they could survive. a brand new day every day. So I don't know, but it's up for debate, isn't it? It's up for debate. But I don't have any more concluding points. But anything from you?
Only the question, Matthew, massive hit or piece of shit?
Callum, it's got to be a massive hit, man. To be honest with you, it's one of the best films of the year, I would say, that we've reviewed. What about yourself, man?
Yeah, of course, a massive hit.
Absolutely.
When we reviewed Hamilton last week, did we give it like a out of 10 rating, or was that massive hit piece of shit
I think
situation?
I think yeah,
I think we forgot our own rating system. Like I feel
I
like
think
we
so.
rated it out of 10.
So did I. For Hamilton, massive hit for me. What would you give it?
I would also give it a massive hit.
Great man, good man. Oh, and what would you give Palm Springs out of 10 then, if we're gonna rate it like we do with older films?
I would give this film a 9 out of 10.
Same, actually, same here, man. Completely the same. But this was a really refreshing and probably one of the best films of the year, anyway, wouldn't it, man?
Yeah, it definitely was, and I would say the only like criticism that I could glean from this film is the fact that I think it fails in the redemptive arc for Sarah, because I feel like that she betrays Tala by having sex with Abe, and then she also betrays Tala by mistakenly thinking that Abe has learned a lesson despite not being in the time loop. So she allows Tala to marry him just because it's easier
Great
for
point.
her. So I feel like that any moral ambiguity behind Niles was resolved, but for me Sarah's wasn't.
It's a great point, buddy. I agree completely, Calm. You made some fantastic points in there, buddy. But yeah, so thank you for sharing. Thank you for introducing me to this film as well. So, John, to wrap up the episode then, buddy, yeah?
Yeah, so if you want to do a quick future episode chat,
Yes, let's do
we
it, man.
we will
What films
be
are we going to be talking about soon?
well very soon we'll be releasing our American classics film episode, so that'll be a the pinnacle of the Movie Mates podcast. I mean, I'm confident. I haven't watched any of the films that we're discussing, and we're going to leave you in suspense on which ones that we'll be talking about. The only confirmed one that we've talked about is Gone with the Wind.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I am not looking forward to watching any of these films. Honestly, I chose them out, but I'm confident I'm going to hate them.
Yeah, Gone with the Wind's 4 hours long, so god damn it.
Yeah, like the oldest film that I've ever liked was probably The Graduate, which came out in 1967.
Yeah,
So we're sort of pushing our luck by going back to the 30s. I think aside from Snow White, that will be the oldest film I've ever seen.
yeah, same man, same. So yeah, stay tuned for American Classics coming soon, and then Disney Part 5, and then the 50th episode, Cal. We all can't wait for that.
Oh, Matthew, more important than any of that shit, the
Oh,
kissing
sorry,
booth,
yes, sorry.
which I will have you watch by the end of the week.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I've been wanting to watch it anyway, so that'll be another one taken off the bucket list. But no, thank you very much for today, buddy. You made some fantastic points. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's listened to this review. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Palm Springs in the comment section down below. We'll be really interested to hear your thoughts on whether you agreed or disagreed with us. But yeah, please be sure to email us at moviematespodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to leave any 50th podcast suggestion topics, leave them in the comment section or email us again. But no, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Callum. Take care, everyone, and bye bye.
Bye bye.